Right now on Morning News Now, wet, hazy American summer, a dramatic assortment of wild weather impacting millions of Americans in all four corners of the country. From the east, where smoky skies and dangerously poor air quality have folks in major cities choked up, to the wildfire-scarred west and waterlogged south. We're covering it all, plus when you might finally see some relief. Lone Star State Showdown, Texas's high-stakes redistricting rift that could potentially shake up next year's midterms, breaking new legal ground. Governor Greg Abbott now asking the state's Supreme Court to kick the leader of Texas's House Democrats out of office. This after dozens of Democrats fled the state to stall the GOP's plan. Now that Democrat is firing back. Plus, a troubling new report. Folks that have had their sensitive Social Security information leaked online are at a dramatically higher risk of being targeted by bad actors. So what can you do if you think your number's been compromised? Well, we've got some tips coming up later in the hour. And it has been dubbed the viral drink of the summer by some, but is America's matcha mania now at risk of drying up? Why global tariffs and tight supply could actually put the future of this powdered phenomenon on ice. Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is on assignment. In some places, it's floods, other spots, fires or smoke caused by fires. Add it all up, and tens of millions of people across the country are dealing with some sort of extreme weather today. Strong storms dumped several inches of rain in the Carolinas yesterday, closing roads like this one in Charlotte. And it's not over yet there. More rain is falling across that area this morning, causing a sunrise headache for commuters. Out west, wildfires are exploding in size. In Central California, what's known as the Grifford Fire is burning more than 83,000 acres, threatening nearly 900 structures. That has forced hundreds of people to evacuate from their homes. And smoke from Canada's wildfires is creating issues for us here in the Northeast. At least 10 states are under air quality alerts, with cities on the East Coast and in the Midwest waking up to hazy skies. NBC News correspondent Emily Ikeda is in New York City, one of the places blanketed in smoke.
Hey there. Well, it's just been an unrelenting week of smoky skies. 10 states are facing air quality alerts yet again today, and we have seen some improvement, but you can see how that haze just continues to hang over the New York City skyline as hundreds of wildfires burn and expand from California to Canada, forcing highways to shut down, evacuations, and sending thick plumes of smoke hundreds of miles away across the continent. In California, officials say there have been more than 4,400 wildfires in the first half of this year. That's actually up 14% compared to the same time period in last year. Meantime, in the south, a very different weather woe. The region has just been waterlogged. Parts of the Carolinas seeing more than 5 inches of rain and strong wind gusts just yesterday alone. It's turned roadways into more like riverways and flooded homes as well. Back here in the New York City area, health experts are urging people to be on the lookout for symptoms of poor or unhealthy air quality. They say some of the first signs of that, a scratchy throat and watery eyes. Back to you.
All right, Emily, thank you. For more on the extreme weather, what you can expect, let's bring in meteorologist Amelia Draper. She joins us from our Washington, D.C. affiliate, WRC, with your Morning News Now weather. Amelia, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. First, I want to start with the wildfires burning up in Canada. So far, about 16.8 million acres have been burned. To give you an idea of how large that is, that's a little bit larger than the state of West Virginia. Canada is on track to have its second worst wildfire season ever. And by the way, there are currently 756 active wildfires right now. Now, today, we're going to see winds coming out of the south. What that is going to do, it's going to push the smoke to the north and to the east. So for areas like the Midwest, the Great Lakes, we are going to start to see the smoke disperse there, but not necessarily the case in the Northeast. We're looking at this lingering plume that's going to continue to impact the area, at least today, potentially tomorrow. And while the Mid-Atlantic has been spared from the haze, from the smoke, we could actually see the air quality degrade there today on into tomorrow. So looking at that air quality forecast, unhealthy air remains in effect for parts of the Great Lakes and the Northeast. Meanwhile, here are the wildfires burning out west. There are around 50 large fires burning right now, and weather conditions there not helping out today. Here's a look at the fire weather threat. It's a critical risk for areas like Cedar City and Grand Junction. When you factor in warm, windy conditions and low relative humidity, it helps wildfires spread very easily. It leads to difficulty in getting them contained. And looking at the temperatures out here, I mean, look at this. Albuquerque right now running more than 11 degrees above normal at 100 today. Tucson about 15 degrees above normal as we look to tomorrow. The heat does not improve out in the southwest. We're looking at Lubbock coming in at 108. That's almost 10 degrees above normal. Dodge City also running almost 10 degrees above normal. Now, the good news is this heat dome will start to break down as we head toward the end of the week. But then in the southeast, it's all about the heavy rain once again, with flood alerts in effect for a good portion of Georgia, including Atlanta, Macon, and Albany, up into parts of North Carolina. Right now, Durham is under a flash flood warning, with nearly 1 to 2 inches of rain already falling during these early morning hours. Here's a look at the current radar there right now. You can see that heavy rain impacting parts of Virginia down into the Carolinas. So as we head through these next few days in the south, a storm system, it's stalled there and it's going to linger. So today, heavy rain continues for parts of North Carolina and Virginia. Getting into the afternoon hours, showers and thunderstorms along the southeast coast. Then as we head on into tomorrow, this stalled front there generates more areas of rain, Joe. So this weather pattern that we're looking at, it's kind of stuck across most of the country for now.
Yeah, just no relief there in the southeast.
Right.
All right, Amelia, thank you so much. The redistricting battle in Texas is escalating this morning. Texas Governor Greg Abbott is asking the state Supreme Court for permission to remove a key Democrat from office. The lawsuit was filed on Tuesday. It argues that State Representative Gene Wu violated the state constitution and that his absence amounted to an abandonment of office. Representative Wu is the House Democratic Caucus chair in Texas. Earlier this week, many Texas House Democrats fled the state in order to delay Republican efforts to redraw the congressional map, giving congressional Republicans 5 more seats. Wu responded to the lawsuit on MSNBC, speaking with Jen Psaki last night.
It's simply insanity. Look, I mean, first of all, this seat doesn't belong to me. The sure as hell doesn't belong to the governor. This seat belongs to the people of the state of Texas, and I took an oath to protect them and defend them. And when the governor conspires with a corrupt president to use illegal, unconstitutional racial gerrymandering to strip power from hardworking communities who have spent decades building up their power, building up their voice, only to have President Trump steal it from them, I took an oath to defend against that.
NBC News Chief Justice and National Affairs correspondent Kelly O'Donnell joins us now. So, Kelly, we heard yesterday from the president that the FBI could get involved and round up the Democratic lawmakers who fled. Tell us more about what the president said, and does that seem likely right now?
Well, what we're seeing play out in a broad sense is how lawmakers, the governor, and now the national level officials are looking at what tools are in the toolbox in terms of the law and court redress to see how can they manage this situation. So because lawmakers who are Democrats in Texas have left their state, the bounds of how the governor can control or compel them to come back are very limited. So that is how you look to a national police agency like the FBI. Certainly, there are questions about whether it is lawful for the FBI to try to compel them to return to their states. In a criminal context, you could have extradition from one state to another. This is a very different set of circumstances. The president was asked about this in a sweeping set of questions and answers with reporters, and he opined on whether the FBI could get involved and suggested it might be possible. Here's how the president responded.
They may have to. They may have to. No, I know they want him back. Not only the attorney general, the governor wants him back. If you look, I mean, the governor of Texas is demanding they come back. So a lot of people are demanding they come back. You can't just sit it out. You have to go back. You have to fight it out. That's what elections are all about.
So the president is talking about wanting those Democratic lawmakers back in the state of Texas. Of course, given the majority is there, they believe that if that vote goes forward, they would lose the power that you heard the legislator talk about and his concerns. So this is a fight that we see every decade. What is unusual here is that it is happening mid-decade at a time when there has not been a refreshed census that gives information about how many voters are in what parts of any given state to determine how those lines should be drawn. It's always a political kind of mud wrestling match. In this case, it has been amplified by the president wanting to ensure that he could have potentially more seats in the National Congress going into the midterms next year.
Kelly, meantime, there have also been these growing calls from Democratic majority states to do the same thing as Texas if Texas does push ahead with these redistricting plans. What are we hearing there? Could we see these states retaliate?
Well, what we typically would see is that Democrats would argue that this should be done in a more orderly way once a decade. And when that happens, it really is an all-out fight to get the lines that best reflect what the legislature of either party that controls it can determine. Now we are hearing from Democrats that they might need to employ what they're calling a fire with fire approach, that if it's happening in a state like Texas, maybe blue-dominant states, Democrat majority states, should also examine ways to plus up potential seats for them. Again, it's not determining who gets the seat, but it is drawing lines that could benefit based on knowledge of the population of which party might be more favorable there. So it's not a guarantee, but it certainly adjusts the playing field. So we're seeing that debated in states like Illinois, like New York, that have a Democratic governor because there's a veto power, as well as a dominant legislature.
Kelly, while we have you, we do understand there have been some new developments in the battle over the release of those Jeffrey Epstein files. What is the latest there?
Well, certainly there are lots of changes here and lots of incremental steps. And part of what we have seen is the House Oversight Committee is subpoenaing the Department of Justice for all of its records on the Epstein files for the committee to use in its review. Also sending out subpoenas and summons for a spate of national officials who they want to hear from, very big, bold names. And then we're also hearing that Ghislaine Maxwell, the co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein, who is serving 20 years in prison, her lawyers are pushing back against public release because they argue that she has constitutional rights in trying to pursue any kind of relief on her sentence, and they don't want to see it happen. So there are a number of developments, as you'll see in my report.
This blunt and jarring new statement in a case commanding much public attention. Jeffrey Epstein is dead. Ghislaine Maxwell is not. Those words from Maxwell's attorneys as they filed a request to block the government's efforts to release long secret grand jury transcripts in the investigation of infamous sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Maxwell is serving 20 years as Epstein's co-conspirator in the sex trafficking of young women. Her lawyers insist that despite whatever interest the public may have in Epstein, her legal options are viable and her due process rights remain. Attention has swirled around Maxwell after the Department of Justice conducted 2 days of interviews with her in July. And later, she was transferred from a Florida prison to a lower security camp in Texas that typically does not house sex offenders. The president said he played no role in her move.
I didn't know about it at all. No, I read about it just like you did.
In a separate development, a fresh round of congressional subpoenas that target a group of prominent national figures, including Bill and Hillary Clinton. House Oversight also subpoenaed 6 former attorneys general and 2 past FBI directors, seeking their testimony this fall. Epstein victims are also weighing into the court about the potential of releasing those transcripts with mixed reviews. One woman writing, "I am not some pawn in your political warfare," while another said, "This transparency and accountability is a form of justice."
And as developments keep happening, sources that we have talked to say that there is some consideration being given to releasing the transcript of the 2 days of interviews conducted by a senior official in the Justice Department, the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, and Ghislaine Maxwell. She was given limited immunity to do that question and answer, meaning her responses, if truthful, could not be used against her. So could those transcripts become public? That's something that we are told is being considered. So So we'll be watching for more developments. Joe?
All right. Kelly O'Donnell, thank you so much. We have NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos here with us for more on this. I want to pick it up right there with that point that Kelly was making. That source familiar with the matter told NBC News, quote, "We're leaning toward transparency when it comes to whether to release the files." Is this something the department can just do, release these files? And is it something Maxwell can fight? As a defense attorney, why would you maybe not want these files out there?
Right. There are two categories, really, of information. There is grand jury proceedings, and we've already dealt with that separately. That's the kind of thing that remains very secret, but it's going to be minimalist because it's the bare bones minimum the government needs in order to present to a grand jury to get to an indictment. Far more interesting is going to be the bankers' boxes of documents and records that DOJ simply has already in their possession. There are limitations as to what they can reveal and what they can disclose. There are issues of privacy. As you can see, different victims have different approaches to what they would like released, but DOJ has to consider privacy and other factors in deciding what, if anything, they're going to release, because they can't just wholesale dump everything out there. There are considerations similar to the way freedom of information laws apply. There are exemptions to what you can and cannot release from government records.
Let's talk about this minimum security federal prison that Maxwell was moved to. It's a dormitory-style facility. Doesn't typically house inmates like Maxwell, convicted of a sex crime, serving a lengthy sentence, drawing a lot of questions and criticism. One former official at the Bureau of Prisons told NBC News it was a travesty of justice. Is it? Is there a compelling reason she should have been moved to this?
First, you happen to be talking to a person who does not put a lot of stock in a former BOP official's opinion about travesties of justice. I'm a defense attorney. I'm biased. Most of my dealings with BOP are not pleasant. However, that being said, it is true that Maxwell was technically ineligible for a minimum security camp, which, by the way, as a defense attorney, is the greatest place you can get your client to. You want low security where she was is not bad. Minimum security camps are fantastic. So that is a benefit. So let's take a step back, because there are parts of this that are strange and parts that are not. If Ghislaine Maxwell has information that the government was interested in, we don't know what it was, but obviously she did, because they met with her for 9 hours. So something is interesting there. If I'm her attorney, I'm going to want something out of this deal. This is the same government that put my client in prison, rightfully or wrongfully. It's straight up business, because you're negotiating with the government. You want to talk to her for 9 hours? Give us something. And if that something is moving from a low security to a minimum security, that's true. She is technically ineligible. The BOP had to give her a waiver for that, but they can do it when they want to do it. So did she get something in return for talking to the government? Absolutely. And she should have. Her attorneys did a good job negotiating that, because otherwise you could tell the government to go pound sand.
Of course, the question is, what did she say? We'll have to find out more about that. Let's talk about this House Oversight Committee, these subpoenas. It's a GOP-led committee. They want to hear from the Clintons and these former Justice Department officials. First of all, I assume we're going to see some pushback to these subpoenas. How sharp are the teeth on these subpoenas?
Absolutely. And we've talked about this so many times, Joe. There is such a difference, even though the word is the same, subpoena. There is such a difference between a judicial or a grand jury subpoena and a congressional subpoena. Often a congressional subpoena just means the initiation of negotiations about how, when, or if we're going to comply with this subpoena. So you better believe that whatever date is on those subpoenas, none of those recipients that we just saw in all those photos, none of them are going to respond promptly on that day. Look at all those names. Every one of them is going to be contacting Congress, contacting the attorneys, seeing what they can do to limit or even avoid having to show up and provide documents, information, or testimony, because they have a pretty good argument that a lot of these, even though Congress has broad investigative authority, there's a lot of negotiation room here, because it seems like a very vague fishing expedition at this point.
Those are some pretty big name people there that would be appearing.
Very big names.
All right, Danny, thank you so much. Appreciate it. We're now just one day away from President Trump's sweeping new tariffs taking effect, and they're set to hit nearly every U.S. trading partner. Here to talk more about this, NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung. Brian, good to have you with us. So the big day is nearly upon us. Where could we see some of the biggest price rises, and just how soon could that happen?
Joe, short answer is basically everywhere, and that's because of the scale and scope of these tariffs, which are set to take effect, as you point out, midnight tonight into tomorrow. And I know a lot of people have been thinking, I've been hearing about these tariff headlines for months now. Why should I take this any more seriously than we have in the past, with the president having kicked the can down the road? Well, it's because the president and this United States have inked these so-called deals with a number of countries that have said, look, here is the tariff rate that you're going to pay. Effective tomorrow, it could be 15, 20, even higher that percent that you'll be paying, and that is going to be effective. So this is the realest threat that we've seen of things like grocery prices increasing, clothing and footwear, coffee, as well as olive oil, beer, wine, spirits, cars, housing materials, energy costs. These are all things that can get more expensive. If you look at clothing, for example, there's a 20% effective rate on Vietnam that could impact the price that you pay for shoes and other items that come from that country effective tomorrow. Then there's also Brazil, where you have this 50%, a gnarly tariff of that scale that could be impacting the cost of your coffee beans going up by that much as well. These are all set to take effect tomorrow. Could there be some sort of last-minute midnight deal with these countries to lower those rates? In theory, yes. The White House hasn't closed the door to that. But again, it seems like this is the realest threat that we've seen, with those tariff rates set to dramatically increase effective tomorrow, Joe.
And Brian, we also heard from the president yesterday on CNBC threatening higher tariffs on pharmaceutical imports. He said they could eventually go as high as 250%. What would something like that mean for consumers? Why does the president want to push this so high?
Yeah, the president arguing that those pharmaceutical products should be made here in the United States. And this would be a thorn specifically in the side of the European Union, which signed this deal with the United States, or agreed in principle with the United States, for a 15% tariff rate. Now, if there were to be this dramatically higher 250% tariff rate on those goods that come in from the European Union into the United States, those drug costs could get dramatically more expensive for American consumers, while American companies try to figure out how to reshore those supply chains here in the United States, which is not an easy thing to do. But again, the president saying he wants to force these manufacturers to make it domestically. That's the reason why he's floating this 250% tariff rate, which would have to be finalized by the Commerce Department before it actually takes effect, Joe.
And keeping in mind, prescription drug costs always a huge election issue. The president, Brian, also gave us an update on trade talks with China. Where do things stand there?
Yeah, well, keep in mind there is that August 12th deadline. So even though we're talking about that August 7th deadline going into tomorrow, that is actually not going to impact trade with China because of this August 12th deadline that they have set separately, specifically for that country. There was some optimism last week that there could be an extension of those discussions, which would then take the effective tariff rate on China being delayed for another few months. But the president hasn't explicitly said so. But he did tell our partners over at CNBC just yesterday, quote, "We're getting very close to a deal. We're getting along with China very well." Is that teasing some sort of confirmation of a tariff suspension for at least another few months? We'll have to see. But again, we haven't gotten the final word from the White House quite yet.
All right, Brian Chung, a lot to cover. Thank you so much. A man suspected in a quadruple murder in Tennessee is behind bars this morning after a days-long manhunt. He was spotted in the city of Jackson between Nashville and Memphis. Police responded to a number of tips before swooping in and making the arrest. NBC News correspondent Priya Sridhar has the latest.
A suspected killer now in custody after evading authorities for a week.
Just after 8 o'clock a.m., we received multiple calls of sightings of the suspect. Placing resources there immediately resulted in an additional citizen's call at about 8:57 a.m. We took advantage of that quickly evolving situation and made the arrest at 9:05 a.m.
They've got multiple callers stating they've got sightings of a man with a rifle that ran back into the wood line.
Officials say this video from a Ring camera showing 28-year-old Austin Robert Drummond dressed in camo and carrying a rifle helped narrow down their search. Authorities say Drummond shot and killed 4 family members, then took an infant and abandoned the baby in a random yard.
I understand there's a connection between the suspect and the victims. Can you just speak to that relationship?
Yeah, in terms of the relationship between the suspect and the victims, the suspect's girlfriend is the sister of a victim.
In an interview with WMC, our NBC Memphis affiliate, Ricardo Contreras says he spotted Drummond.
I think I was while I stole the phone when they got there immediately, and the helicopter and everything. That was, I mean, they moved really quick.
Officials praising the community.
All of the effort, all of the technology, all of the dog determination that we had really came down to the community doing as was stated, seeing something and making that call.
Our thanks to Priya Sridhar for that report. Authorities have not shared how the victims died or any possible motive. Drummond is a convicted felon who was out on bond for attempted murder. Authorities also say they've arrested 3 of Drummond's associates who are accused of assisting him. Much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now, including the damning Coast Guard report revealing that the Titan submersible implosion was entirely preventable. First, after the break, President Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff touching down in Moscow this morning. More on his push to shore up an 11th-hour peace deal to try and bring Russia's war with Ukraine to an end. That is next. Stay with us. We are back with the latest on the push for peace between Russia and Ukraine. President Trump's top negotiator, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, arrived in Moscow this morning for meetings with Russian leaders. He's trying to broker a last-minute deal to end the war before the president's Friday deadline for Russia to agree to peace or face new sanctions. Right now, peace does seem elusive, with Russia ramping up its summer offensive. This morning, Ukrainian officials said that 2 people were killed and a dozen more were hurt by a Russian strike on the southeastern part of the country. NBC News chief international correspondent Keir Simmons joins us now from London with the latest. Keir, good morning. So let's start with Witkoff. Who is he expected to meet with on this trip?
Well, he's meeting with President Putin and with some of President Putin's top advisors. We can see that from the video that's coming out of Moscow, has been coming out of Moscow just in the past few hours. Just to say, Joe, I mean, this is a crucial meeting because, frankly, if it doesn't go well and President Trump doubles down and sees through his threats, if you like, for Friday, that has substantial economic implications. It is a turning point, really, in the Russia-US-Ukraine relationship, if you like. Just back to the question you asked about who he is meeting. He's meeting, for example, Yuri Ushakov is with President Putin. Now, he's a former Russian ambassador to the US, decades of experience, understands America very well. Kirill Dmitriev, another advisor, President Putin's envoy, we've seen him with Witkoff just in the past few hours too. He is more pro-Western, but he also, again, studied in the United States, really understands the United States. My point is this: the pictures right now appear to show Steve Witkoff on his own. They are Kremlin pictures, so we don't know for sure, but it does look as if he's walking in again to a meeting with multiple senior Russian experts and President Putin on his own.
Let's talk here about how President Trump is trying to pressure Putin to take these negotiations seriously. We know Russia has already been sanctioned a lot over the last few years. So what could the U.S. target with new sanctions? Is there any likelihood Putin agrees to a deal by this Friday?
Well, I don't think it's likely that Putin agrees to a deal, but I do think what President Trump is threatening is very serious. I mean, the kinds of things he's talking about, let's put aside what he can actually achieve. The kinds of things he's talking about is imposing tariffs on countries like India and even China in punishment from them doing trade with Russia, including India buying cheap oil, which is said to be, helping Russia get the money for its invasion of Ukraine. Its ongoing war in Ukraine. Another thing that President Trump has been talking about just in the past 24 hours is that if he can push the oil price down, and we are seeing, for example, OPEC members putting more oil onto the market, if he can get the oil price down, that will damage President Putin's ability to wage war because, of course, Russia gets so much of its money from oil and gas. So what President Trump is suggesting will be giving President Putin pause for thought. The issue, though, is that President Putin has given no signs that he doesn't think that his war is working. He does think he's making progress, even if it's incremental. And you can see that on the battlefield from the way that Russia is bombarding Ukraine, launching terrible attacks on Ukraine by drone and missile over recent weeks and months.
And, of course, Ukraine is an important part of any deal. Ukrainian President Zelensky said he spoke with President Trump on the phone yesterday. Real quick, Keir, what do we know about that call?
Yeah, he says it was productive. They talked about the plan now to supply Ukraine with weapons funded by the European the Europeans and Britain. That is a substantial change. Let's just pause here for a second, Joe, before we finish, and just consider what a change this is from where President Trump was just a few months ago, where he was talking about he could do a deal with President Putin, to where he is now appearing to double down on supporting Ukraine in this war.
Keir Simmons, always appreciate your reporting. Thank you so much. A comprehensive new report finds that the implosion of the Titan submersible was entirely preventable. It has been more than 2 years since the ill-fated mission to visit the Titanic. 5 people were killed. Now a new report from the Coast Guard finds the CEO of OceanGate, which owned and operated the submersible, silenced warnings before making the trip himself. NBC News correspondent Stephanie Gosk has more.
It could have been prevented, the U.S. Coast Guard concludes in a more than 300-page report on the deadly implosion of the Titan submersible. 5 people were killed in June 2023 on their way to the Titanic wreck, more than 10,000 feet underwater. Among them, the CEO of OceanGate, the company that offered the ultra-exclusive and expensive tours. Jason Neubauer chaired the investigation.
Was the company primarily to blame for this tragedy?
I believe so. They understood the process. They just didn't follow it.
The U.S. Coast Guard says a number of factors led to the sudden catastrophic implosion. Among them, the company had a toxic workplace environment and relied on intimidation tactics to avoid oversight, including the looming threat of being fired to silence employees concerned about safety. David Lockridge says he was fired in 2018 after repeatedly warning CEO Stockton Rush that the carbon fiber used to build the submersible wasn't safe. The hull popped and cracked, he says, during testing.
Everybody was aware that the hull was starting to break down. It should never have sounded like that at all. That was a warning sign.
During the 2022 operating season, the Titan's hull began to make noise again. And what that meant was carbon fiber was breaking, during each of those dives.
OceanGate says it cooperated fully with the Coast Guard's investigation, saying it wound down operations after the tragedy. The family of businessman Shahzada Dawood and his 19-year-old son, who both died on the Titan, thanked the U.S. Coast Guard and called for accountability and regulatory change, but added no report can alter the heartbreaking outcome for their family. Stephanie Gosk, NBC News.
Coming up, contracts canceled. After the break, hundreds of millions of federal dollars dedicated to critical vaccine development now canned by Health Chief Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So what sort of impact could that have on another potential health emergency like COVID? The doctor is in next. We're back with our weekly medical checkup. This week, we're looking at new research on how too much screen time could put young hearts at risk and why getting a good night's sleep might actually help you learn faster. First, though, a big shakeup in vaccine policy. The Trump administration announced it is slashing funding for mRNA research. Let's bring in NBC News medical contributor Dr. Ben Gupta for more on this. Dr. Gupta, good to have you with us. So before we get to our weekly checkup, we do want to get your thoughts on this major move by Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. Some more details. The Trump administration announced that it's canceling 22 mRNA vaccine contracts. This adds up to about $500 million in contracts. Given the role the vaccine played during the pandemic, something we spoke about with you so often, what could this mean for future public health emergencies?
Good morning. This is a big deal, and this is disappointing. For your viewers out there, the mRNA technology, yes, it's new for the American people, but it's been developed over the course of decades. And the reason why it was so effective, it's estimated to have saved about 1.5 million lives, 200,000 hospitalizations. So it was a huge, huge public health impact because we can quickly develop vaccines from it, Joe. So it's nimble. It's extremely safe. I know that there's a lot of misinformation on its safety profile in some parts of the internet. It's extremely safe. We've had over 1,000 studies documenting its safety. And the challenge here is what's going to happen with avian flu, all these threats that now exist. How are we going to be able to quickly respond to it? That's the challenge here. There is no better technology to quickly develop vaccines than mRNA technology. So this leaves us quite vulnerable.
And I do want to be clear, the estimates were 200,000 lives saved, 1.5 million hospitalizations. Is that right, Dr. Gupta?
That's right. That's right. Thank you for the clarification.
Let's jump into the checkup now. A new study found that children and young adults who spend excessive time on screens, that includes phones, TVs, gaming devices, could be at higher risk for heart and metabolic issues. What's the link here, Dr. Gupta?
Yeah, so, what we've seen now is that even in young life, that screen time may actually harm heart health. It could increase blood pressure, cholesterol levels. It can really reduce your sleep. All those things impact one's cardiovascular health. And that's why it's really important to develop good screen habits early in life. And so this is concerning. And this is yet another way in which screen time needs to be managed proactively. So from a doctor's orders perspective, you want to move up screen time earlier in the day, get to bed earlier. You don't want to be utilizing, we talk about this all the time, Joe, you don't want to be using screens in any way in the bedroom if you can avoid it, and at least a few hours before you go to bed, ideally.
And get to bed earlier is a great segue into the next topic we want to discuss with you. A good reminder of why you shouldn't miss out on sleep. Researchers found sleeping on it or returning to a task after sleeping can actually improve your performance. Tell us about this. What else did researchers find?
There's this often cited fact that we see anecdotally. I've heard it from my patients that I'm going to sleep on it. They're doing something complicated, or maybe they learned something in school or during the workday, and it tired them out, and they're going to sleep on it and maybe take up a project in the next morning. Turns out this study shows that actually using brain imaging technology, that there's a reason for that. The brain actually goes into hyperactivity mode after you learn something. And then when you wake up in the morning, the areas of learning in our brain that were really activated from whatever we did the day prior are then going into overdrive, Joe, and then they can be more productive. And so from a doctor's orders perspective, that is really why we should say, we always tell people to prioritize sleep, use it as a tool during the day, especially during the workday. If you need to take a nap, if you need to just, go to bed early and make sure you have a good night of sleep, it can actually make you more productive. And there's, an actual physiologic reason why the brain actually responds really favorably.
Dr. Gupta, we only have a few seconds here, but I want to talk about one more study that found minimally processed foods may be the most beneficial for weight loss. What kind of foods are we talking about?
The study showed what we've long said before. Whole foods are important. So fruits, vegetables, making sure you have that balanced plate, Joe, helps reduce the risk of putting on weight, helps with the weight loss, much more so than ultra-processed foods, things like cereals, bars, that have to actually be, multiple ingredients and need to be processed. So anything that's whole, that doesn't need to be processed, is good for you.
All right, Dr. Gupta, good to have you with us. Thank you so much. Coming up, we have got some pretty concerning new data surrounding identity theft in America. And we come back by having your Social Security information leaked online could put you at higher risk to be targeted by tech-savvy criminals. More on that next on Morning News Now. We are back with a warning about identity theft. A new study shows that if your Social Security number is leaked online, you are much more likely to be targeted by criminals. Last year alone, there were more than 1,800 new data breaches that included American Social Security numbers. And experts say it is often impossible for a victim to know just how widely their information has been shared. NBC News Digital reporter Kevin Collier joins me now. He covers cybersecurity, privacy, and technology policy. Kevin, good morning. So as we just mentioned, based on the study's findings, how much higher is your risk of being targeted by criminals if that Social Security number is leaked?
Morning, Joe. It's wildly higher. The study found that the average person information who's not necessarily widely available on the dark web, the control group for this study, has about a 2.1% chance of being the victim of an attempted identity theft. If their number is leaked and widely shared, it jumps to 97% chance. So it's night and day.
97%. That's incredible. So what financial information is most commonly targeted then by criminals?
The big one is pairing your Social Security number, the full Social Security number, with name, address, phone number, maybe your age, the kind of basic demographic information. Their goal is to pretend to be you, to ask an institution for money. So we're thinking filing false tax returns with the IRS, opening bank accounts or credit cards in your name, or trying to take out a loan in your name, things like that.
How can someone find out if their Social Security has been leaked online? And obviously, you can't get a new Social Security number the same way you can change your password. So what should you do if you find out that's happened?
The best course of action, experts resoundingly tell me, is assume it has been leaked. There's really not a great way. The cyber criminal underground is very fast-moving and amorphous. So act like it has been leaked. And then freeze your credit with all three major reporting agencies. And, you might need to temporarily unthaw it if you need to take out a loan, have a mortgage or something like that. But better to have your default status be your credit is frozen.
And you would freeze if you feel like something's happened or if you're part of a scam. Like, when would you do that?
Freeze now, and only unfreeze when you need it unfrozen, because most people, their number has already been leaked.
Got it. All right. Kevin Collier, appreciate your reporting. Thank you so much. A new artificial intelligence tool is generating some buzz online. It's called Showrunner. It's a site that allows users to make their own animated series in just minutes. People can create anything from parodies of political figures to cartoon versions of themselves. NBC News correspondent Stephen Romo spoke to one of the co-creators and put the tech to the test.
Elon, I have an executive order here on my desk that says provide new Showrunner users with a brief overview of how to generate a scene.
Its creators are calling it the Netflix of AI.
And there's a person watching us right now.
Showrunner, a video platform launched by the startup Fable, promises not only to let you stream new shows, but also to make new episodes yourself with the help of artificial intelligence.
Look! See, even Nacho thinks this is ridiculous.
And the company's now backed by an investment from Amazon's Alexa fund, Venture Capital. And the platform has started with an AI-generated show titled Exit Valley.
Elon, this place is a biohazard.
Described as a Family Guy-style TV comedy satirizing tech giants like Sam Altman.
Oh God, is this what I built OpenAI for?
But what Fable is really banking on is that you will get inspired by their content and remix it. And it's now available to users on Discord, so we put it to the test. Trying to use a feature that the company says lets you become a character in a show by simply uploading a photo. So I uploaded a selfie to Showrunner, but had a hard time turning myself into a character. But we were able to create a scene where animated versions of Kim Kardashian and Joe Rogan sang my praises.
I mean, if aliens came down and asked for our best human, I'd be like, take Stephen Romo, but don't probe him, okay?
We spoke to Showrunner co-founder Edward Saatchi about the issues we ran into.
We're still figuring out, we're still in the early days. It's confusing the way that it asks you to do it because it asks you to put in a prompt or a photo, but you could sort of read it as a prompt and a photo. It was kind of, they were canceling each other out. So the photo and the words were canceling each other out.
The app's public access comes just weeks after Disney and Universal, which shares a parent company with NBC News, joined forces in a lawsuit against artificial intelligence image creator Midjourney, alleging copyright infringement. But Fable says it's actually in talks now about a partnership with Disney and other Hollywood studios about licensing intellectual property for Showrunner.
We're deleting characters, so people might create a character connected to an IP. We delete them when we see them. People will try to find their way around it. But when we see it, we block it. Or when people ask us to do a takedown, we take it down.
So whether you love or hate the idea of AI making its way into your TV rotation, there's no denying having access to all this creative power at the push of a button can be, at the very least, entertaining.
You're living in the golden age of content.
Stephen Romo, NBC News.
Some more financial news. Disney's ESPN and the NFL have reached a major deal that could change how we stream Sunday football. CNBC's Savannah now has that and some other money news. Savannah, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good morning. Yes, so Disney's ESPN, it strikes a deal to buy the NFL Network, the Red Zone channel, and other media assets from the NFL. So in exchange, the league will get a 10% stake in ESPN. Now, financial terms of the deal, those haven't been disclosed, but it will help boost the offerings on ESPN's upcoming direct-to-consumer streaming service, which is set to launch this fall. for $29.99 a month. Now, ESPN will own and operate the TV and streaming rights to the NFL Network, which will continue to carry 7 games a year. Disney also announcing it's paying $1.6 billion for the rights to all the big live events from the WWE, including WrestleMania and SummerSlam. Meanwhile, Google is rolling out a new tool within its Gemini AI chatbot, letting users create an illustrated story just by describing it. Now, this feature called Storybook generates 10-page stories, each with a short paragraph that Gemini can read aloud. Now, you can customize the story by asking to use specific art styles, such as claymation, anime, or comics. Now, Google also lets you upload photos and other images for Gemini to reference, such as a child's drawing. And Motorola teams up with Swarovski to create a crystal Latin version of the Razr phone. So the Pantone Ice Melt, it features 3D quilted leather-inspired finish with 35 crystals, and it comes with a pair of earbuds that are designed to be worn like jewelry. Now, Motorola calls this the Brilliant Collection, which will cost you a cool $1,000, Joe.
All right. Fake versions are already being sold outside of 30 Rock right now.
Yeah.
On the sidewalk.
Well, there you go.
Silvana, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Matcha is having a moment in the U.S. right now. Some are even calling it the drink of the summer. But between President Trump's new tariffs on Japanese imports and soaring demand for the drink, there are worries America's supply could run out. NBC News correspondent Emily Ikeda has the tea on what this could mean for drink prices.
It's the bright green drink that's now a lot of people's cup of tea.
Every time someone else is getting coffee, I'm like, okay, give me the matcha.
Matcha, a vibrant powder swirled into lattes, lemonades, and ice cream.
Oh, it's really good. It's so creamy.
The budding obsession is rooted in a rich history. Matcha has been used in Japanese tea ceremonies and appreciated for its apparent health benefits for centuries.
In like the 1200s, 1300s, like people in Japan were talking about that and promoting it, like drinking matcha as a cure for hangovers, for example.
Today, it's a global sensation. You've probably seen lines snaking around stores.
Are you surprised by how busy this place is?
No, because it's really good.
The trend, experts say, accelerated by the colorful creations splashed across social media and a tourism boom in Japan since the pandemic.
If you look on Instagram and TikTok, like the bright green color of matcha, it's very visually appealing. And there's also the cool Japan factor, the sort of aesthetics of trendy minimalism.
Orders for matcha lattes are skyrocketing in the U.S., up 48% from last year, according to payment processing company Square. And prices are rising too, averaging $6.15, up from $5.84 last year. But supply is drying up, with farmers turning away from tea over the last couple of decades, plus record-breaking heat hurting this spring's harvest. With tight supply and sky-high demand, companies in Japan are even limiting how much matcha people can buy. And cafes in the U.S. are running out.
We have seen extreme demand. We usually sell out within 24 hours, and recently, 200 tins went up, and they were gone in about 16 hours.
Zach Mangan, founder of Kettle, a company selling Japanese teas online and in New York and L.A. cafes, says most suppliers doubled their prices from last year, and Kettle's had to pass some of those costs on to consumers. He's worried Kettle will need to raise prices even more now with new 15% tariffs on Japanese goods.
If it were just 15%, we might be able to just say whatever, we'll take care of it. But it makes it more complicated when you're factoring both the tariffs and the increase in raw material costs in Japan.
So how long can inflation-weary consumers keep spending big on the latest hot drink? People are pulling back on spending at some major chains, but Americans are pouring more money into beverages, with sales at U.S. beverage chains forecasted to grow by 4.5% this year. Affordable is still appetizing for many.
We have the viral spaghetti.
With the thrifty spaghetti, an Aperol Spritz spinoff, making a run at cocktail of the summer.
You have this sort of little bit of barbell effect of super cheap, no bells and whistles, and then go all out on that one time in that experience.
For now, business is booming at the matcha cafes, and as prices rise, time will tell whether matcha lovers will keep putting their money where their mouth is. Emily Ikeda, NBC News.
Still haven't tried it yet. We'll have to give it a shot. All right, coming up, a routine patrol turned 2 Baltimore police officers into heroes overnight. When Morning News Now returns, how a split-second decision from the skies became one the pair will never forget. Stay with us. That's next. Finally this hour, how two police officers made a split-second decision that saved a man's life. Reporter Brianna Ross from our NBC affiliate in Baltimore has the details.
Out on routine patrol in the skies above Baltimore, helicopter Foxtrot flight officers Craig Hoover and Andre Smith Jr. heard a call come over the radio.
I got 2 tickets for a water rescue. It says drowning arrest out of water.
A 25-year-old man who hopped the fence at a neighborhood pool after hours needed help.
I decided to respond to that call.
Hoover and Smith knew this call was life or death, and other officers were too far away to get there in time.
I did see the bystanders. It appeared they had just pulled the victim out of the water.
So circling over the school,
Dre is passionate about saving and helping people. And when he said, if you get me on the ground, I'll do CPR on this guy, I had no choice. I had to find a way to get him on the ground.
I'm putting a helicopter down in the field. This guy looked like he's not breathing, not moving. He's in cardiac arrest. Have a medic get here ASAP.
Hey, 10-4, I copy.
Officer Hoover spotted an opening, a field next to the nearby school where he could land. On the ground, watch Officer Smith sprint to the patient's side.
I knew right away, just looking at him, he was in bad shape and he needed compressions pretty quick. So I just did it.
Smith, who was a lifeguard growing up, was able to get the man breathing again.
It feels good. To me, it's just a regular day in the office.
A heroic split-second decision and a life saved. Brianna Ross for NBC News, Baltimore.
Once a lifeguard, always a lifeguard. All right, that's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now. Stay with us. The news continues right now. Good morning, I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is on assignment. Right now on Morning News Now, coast-to-coast extreme weather impacting Americans in nearly every part of the country. From hazy skies caused by wildfires on the West Coast in Canada to dangerous floods and record-setting temperatures. We'll let you know when we could potentially see some relief. Texas showdown, Republican Governor Greg Abbott suing to remove the state House's Democratic leader as the fight over redistricting continues. The escalation coming days after dozens of Democrats fled Texas to delay a GOP-led plan that would make over the state's congressional map. We'll tell you where this fight now goes from here. Also this morning, under investigation, a congressional committee focusing on the Jeffrey Epstein case now issuing subpoenas to high-profile figures like former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. This comes as the Trump administration considers releasing the transcripts of Ghislaine Maxwell's interview with the DOJ, the latest ahead from Washington. And a new study highlighting an alarming trend when it comes to scientific research shows a growing number of fake studies and AI-generated content making their way into industry journals. We'll tell you why this trend's on the rise and has scientists worried. We begin this hour with the extreme weather that is impacting every corner of the country. In Central California, the Gifford fire, one of roughly a dozen burning across that state, grew to more than 83,000 acres. It's now threatening nearly 900 structures, forcing hundreds of people to evacuate. And smoke from the wildfires burning in Canada is creating air quality alerts for at least 10 states in the U.S. In Boston, the visibility was so bad yesterday, Logan Airport had to cancel flights for a second time this week. Down south, flooding is the biggest concern. A lot of rain fell across the Carolinas yesterday afternoon in a short period, flooding several streets. This morning, even more rain is hitting the region, causing concerns over the possibility of even more flooding. NBC News correspondent Emily Ikeda has the very latest from a hazy Brooklyn, New York.
Hey there. Well, it's been an unrelenting week of smoky skies. 10 states are facing air quality alerts yet again today. And while we have seen some improvement, you can see how that haze continues to hang over the New York City skyline as hundreds of wildfires from California to Canada continue to burn and expand, forcing evacuations, the shutdown of highways, and sending thick plumes of smoke across the continent. This morning, millions waking up to another day of hazy skies, fueled by hundreds of smoky wildfires burning across North America. In California, firefighters dousing flames with every resource available, from air attacks to up close on the ground.
We're dealing with a multi-front fire that's fanning out in all directions.
In Southern California, black smoke billowing from hillsides.
My whole life's up there.
More than 4,400 wildfires have been reported in California through July 21st, up 14% from the same time last year. Near the Grand Canyon's northern rim, this massive blaze ballooning to the 7th largest fire in Arizona's history. Meanwhile, smoke from hundreds of wildfires in Canada streaming into the Midwest, where you can't even make out Lake Michigan's horizon, and the Northeast. That haze visible from space, prompting more ground delays at Boston Logan Airport and raising health concerns nationwide.
You really want to limit your exposure to outdoor air pollution.
10 states are facing air quality alerts again today.
It's hazy out. I don't feel healthy out here. I'm sweating. Yeah, it's not good.
Meanwhile, the South is simply waterlogged. Sheets of rain and powerful wind gusts making it nearly impossible to see. The Carolinas hammered by more than 5 inches of rain Tuesday, where this police officer ran through water to warn a motorist about flooded roads.
It is awful. We've lived here for about 4 years now, and it has never flooded like this before.
A mixed bag of wild summer weather impacting millions from coast to coast.
Fortunately, the worst of this haze is expected to begin to dissipate after today here in the Northeast. But health experts are urging people to be on the lookout for symptoms of unhealthy air. They say some of the first signs include a scratchy throat and watery eyes. Back to you.
All right, Emily, thank you so much. Take a look at the camera right now. It's a look at Manhattan. You can barely make it out through all of the haze there in the background. For more on all this extreme weather, meteorologist Amelia Draper joins us from our D.C. affiliate, WRC. Amelia, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. First, I want to start with the wildfires burning up in Canada. Get this, so far, 16.8 million acres of land has burned. To put that into perspective, that's a little bit larger than the size of West Virginia. So this is on track to be the second worst year on record for wildfires up in Canada. There are currently 756 active wildfires right now. Now, today what's going to happen, the winds are going to start to come out of the south. So that's going to send the smoke to the north and to the east, which is good news for the Midwest, the Great Lakes. It's going to allow the smoke to disperse there. But here in the Northeast, the smoke is going to linger. A plume is just kind of sitting over us, a smoky plume, continuing to push wildfire smoke into parts of the Northeast, even into the Mid-Atlantic. But as we head throughout the week, we should start to see the smoke disperse in the Northeast. But in the Mid-Atlantic, I could see the smoke actually ticking up a little bit, especially out there tomorrow. So we are looking at unhealthy air qualities, especially in parts of New York, Pennsylvania, and then up around areas like Michigan and Wisconsin. Okay, here's a look at the wildfires burning out west. Each one of these orange blazes is going to be a large wildfire where there are around 50 wildfires burning right now, and the conditions aren't great for firefighters trying to fight these blazes. Here's a look at the fire weather threat for today. All of this area in red is under a critical risk. We're talking about warm, windy conditions that allow fires to spread and start easily. And then you tack on low humidity. It makes these blazes very difficult to fight. This includes areas like Cedar City and Grand Junction. And the heat out in the southwest, we're talking about record-setting temperatures. Tucson running about 15 degrees above normal today at 112. Amarillo running 10 degrees above normal at 101. The heat sticks around in the southwest tomorrow. You can see Dodge City about 10 degrees above normal. As we head out to Santa Fe, also about 10 degrees above normal. The heat should start to break down as we head toward the end of the work week. But then in the southeast, it's all about the heavy rain, where we're talking about 11 million people under a flood watch right now. Areas yesterday in the Carolinas, Joe, picked up around 5 inches of rain in some locations. We're talking about more heavy rain from Virginia down into parts of the south again today, and this persists on into tomorrow.
All right, Amelia, thank you so much. President Trump's top negotiator arrived this morning in Moscow for high-stakes peace talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff is trying to broker a last-minute deal to end the war in Ukraine ahead of President Trump's Friday deadline. That's when Mr. Trump says that Russia must agree to a ceasefire or face punishing new sanctions. NBC News chief international correspondent Keir Simmons has the latest.
Hey there, good day to you. President Putin and President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, are meeting now with a White House ultimatum looming. The pictures released by the Kremlin show only Witkoff greeting the Russian leader just hours ago. This morning, a handshake just days before President Trump's deadline to impose punishing new sanctions on Russia if the country does not agree to an immediate ceasefire in Ukraine. Trump trying again to broker a deal with President Putin as Russian missiles and drones rain down on Ukraine and Moscow's army inches forward. Witkoff has met Putin 4 times with little to show for his efforts, and President Putin is stubbornly signaling he will not back down, responding to President Trump's disappointment in a recent interview. Disappointments arise from excessive expectations, Putin says. Trump's strategy now to force Putin to compromise, sending new weapons to Ukraine paid for by Europe and targeting Putin's economy by threatening steep tariffs on countries that do business with Russia.
We'll be doing quite a bit of that. We'll see what happens over the next fairly short period of time.
Trump already in a confrontation with India for trading with Russia and pushing for cheaper oil.
If energy goes down low enough, Putin's going to stop killing people. That'll be nice, even though they're his own people that are dying.
Adding to the high-stakes equation, escalating nuclear rhetoric. Russia declaring it will not restrict the movement of intermediate ballistic missiles after President Trump said he would send U.S. nuclear submarines towards Russia. And the Kremlin doubling down on its links with a now nuclear-armed North Korea. But according to President Trump, Russia has lost a staggering 112,000 soldiers just this year. The White House will be calculating that Putin cannot sustain that, even as he signals he will keep fighting.
All right, Keir, thank you. For more analysis, let's bring in former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, William Taylor. Ambassador Taylor, always appreciate you joining us. Let's start with this ultimatum from President Trump. Agree to the war by Friday. How seriously do you think President Putin is taking it? I mean, is seizing more land in Ukraine more important to him than avoiding these penalties when he's been sanctioned so much these last few years?
Well, you're right, Joe. Putin does have a choice. He can continue to grind out little gains at enormous cost, as you just indicated, President Trump has said, enormous cost to Russians in terms of Russian soldiers. So Putin can continue to do that, or he can look for a way to come to a ceasefire. There's no indication from him or any of his people that have reflected his views that he's ready to go for a ceasefire.
President Zelensky said that he and President Trump spoke on the phone ahead of these meetings in Moscow. That relationship has had a lot of ups and downs. We've seen it play out in front of our eyes on camera. Where do you think things stand right now between the U.S. and Ukraine?
I think it's definitely, Joe, at an up. It's definitely at an up. You're right. There have been ups and downs. But for the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it has been clear that President Trump has figured out that President Putin is the problem. And President Trump wants to support the Ukrainians. That's why he had the conversation yesterday with President Zelensky to coordinate their actions, their ideas, their proposals as Witkoff goes to see Putin today. Witkoff today has a different set of talking points than he did in his previous 4 missions. So this is going to be a different conversation, I expect, in Moscow today.
This week, NATO began coordinating deliveries of large weapons packages bought here in the U.S. to Ukraine after countries like the Netherlands and Sweden said they would provide hundreds of millions of dollars in aid and equipment. As far as you can tell, what are just the biggest needs Ukraine has right now on the battlefield?
Clearly, it's air defense. Clearly, it's Patriot missiles. Patriot missiles manufactured in the United States are the only weapons that can knock down ballistic missiles coming from Russia and attacking civilian targets and military targets, attacking in all parts of Ukraine. It's the Patriot missiles, other air defense, but really it's Patriots that are the most critical weapons for the Ukrainians today.
We heard in Keir's report there that Russia has responded to President Trump saying that he would move to nuclear submarines. That word nuclear always gets people's attention. How serious a nuclear escalation is this?
Joe, I don't think serious. I really don't think serious. Neither side, neither the Americans nor the Russians, neither Putin nor Trump wants to have a conflict. The nuclear submarines that President Trump talked about, they were already on station. The treaty, the arms control treaty, the INF treaty that the Russians have announced they're pulling away from, that's been dead for years. So I don't think it's serious. You always have to be careful But I don't think either side is looking for a conflict.
Ambassador Taylor, we always appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Joe.
The showdown over Republicans' redistricting plans in Texas is escalating this morning. Governor Greg Abbott has filed a lawsuit to remove the House Democratic Caucus chair. He's among the 50-plus Democrats who left the state this week to stall the GOP plan, which could have a dramatic impact on the balance of power in Congress. NBC News correspondent Ryan Chandler joins us now from Austin with the latest. Ryan, good morning.
Joe, good morning. It's been the battle of the governors all week. Republican and Democratic states say that they're going to hop on this partisan trend of mid-decade redistricting if Texas follows through with its plan. Here in Austin, Governor Abbott is resorting to extreme measures to try and get those Democrats back to the Capitol, back to work. I talked with the representative who leads the Democrats in the House. He said that he is undeterred from Governor Abbott's threats. This morning, an unprecedented escalation in Texas, with Republican Governor Greg Abbott asking the state Supreme Court to kick the leader of Texas's House Democrats, Gene Wu, out of office, arguing a legislator who does not wish to perform his duties will be stripped of them. With a warrant for his civil arrest active in Texas, Chairman Wu reacting to the threat from Chicago.
What is your message directly to the governor tonight?
We are unbreakable. We will not be silenced. You will never stop us from defending our people, from defending our communities, and from defending the state of Texas from your corruption and failure.
It comes as the redistricting arms race is going nuclear and national.
Well, I think they've abandoned the state.
Republicans led by President Trump raising the stakes as Democrats draw the line at Texas gerrymandering, which could impact the balance of power in Congress in next year's midterms. President Trump hinting the FBI may get involved in the effort to return Texas Democrats to their state capital after they fled the state in an effort to stall his push to create 5 more Republican districts in Texas.
You have to go back. You have to fight it out.
Texas Republicans sending state troopers to arrest absent Democrats who have found refuge and backup in blue cities like Chicago, New York, and Boston.
If you want a showdown, well, you're going to get a showdown.
That showdown stalling work back in Texas on Tuesday, where Republicans are powerless to make progress on their new congressional maps without a quorum.
We have opportunity for 5 Republican seats to make sure President Trump can get his America First agenda across the finish line.
And you're willing to arrest Democrats and compel them back to these chambers?
Absolutely. I think Texas expects it.
That showdown sparking a backlash, with a number of majority Democratic states promising mutually assured destruction through partisan redistricting of their own. And adding to those legal consequences, Joe, the Democrats who are fleeing the state also face serious financial penalties, $500 fines per member per day for every day that they don't return to Austin. That could reach up to more than $400,000 if they make it to the end of this special session. But still, they say they have no plans to return.
Joe. All right, Ryan Chandler. Ryan, thank you so much. Several high-profile figures like the Clintons are facing subpoenas from a congressional committee that's investigating the Jeffrey Epstein files. It comes as the Trump administration faces mounting questions over a prison transfer for Epstein's convicted accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez has the latest. Gabe, good morning.
Hey there, Joe. Good morning. The president keeps wanting to move on from the Epstein case, but in a rare break with the president, some Republicans in Congress do not. Now, the White House is weighing a new step to silence the skeptics.
This morning, NBC News has learned the Trump administration is considering publicly releasing transcripts of Ghislaine Maxwell's 2-day interview, according to a source familiar with the matter. Maxwell spoke with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who is also President Trump's former personal lawyer.
I think he probably wants to make sure that, people that should not be involved or aren't involved are not hurt.
But Trump saying the meeting was appropriate.
I didn't discuss it with him, but the fact that he did that, not unusual, number one, and most importantly, is something that would be totally above board.
The president also denying he played any role in the transfer of Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator and former girlfriend from a Florida prison to a minimum security federal prison camp in Texas that typically does not hold sex offenders.
I didn't know about it at all.
Democrats have raised concerns about Maxwell's discussions with the Justice Department, implying she's seeking favorable treatment from Trump, which Maxwell's attorneys deny.
It's clear that she might be willing to say whatever it takes to essentially target certain folks and not target Donald Trump.
Her team is now filing a request to block the government's efforts to release long-secret grand jury transcripts. Her lawyers insist that despite whatever interest the public may have in Epstein, her legal options are viable and her due process rights remain, adding Jeffrey Epstein is dead. Ghislaine Maxwell is not. Even though the White House has been eager to move past the Epstein saga, in a bipartisan vote, the House Oversight Committee is issuing a new subpoena, calling on the Justice Department to turn over all its files related to the cases against both Epstein and Maxwell. Republicans on the committee also issuing subpoenas to depose nearly a dozen people, including Bill and Hillary Clinton, 6 former attorneys general, and 2 former FBI directors. Some Republicans in Congress now facing questions about Epstein in their home districts.
Why are you covering up the Epstein files?
I am for the release of those records.
The House Oversight Committee did not subpoena former Labor Secretary Alex Acosta, who served as Florida's Attorney General when Epstein received a controversial non-prosecution agreement in 2008 that allowed him to serve minimal prison time. Meanwhile, the committee announced it would give the Justice Department 2 weeks to deliver all of its files on the Epstein case to Congress, Joe.
All right, Gabe, thank you. Much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later in the hour, scientists sounding the alarm about fake research being produced on an industrial scale. We'll tell you what's behind the growing trend. Up first, it has been more than 2 years since the Titan submersible imploded on its way to the Titanic wreck, killing 5 people. What we are now learning from a highly critical report into the tragedy. We are back now with the Coast Guard's final report on what caused the catastrophic implosion of the Titan submersible after a 2-year investigation. That underwater tragedy killed all 5 people on board, including OceanGate's CEO, who is largely being blamed for the deadly accident. NBC News correspondent Stephanie Gosk has the details. Steph, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. That Coast Guard report says OceanGate and its CEO created a, quote, toxic environment that essentially silenced employees who had safety concerns about the Titan. So when the warning signs piled up, they were ignored, leading to tragedy.
The red flags were there for years. The deadly implosion of OceanGate's Titan submersible could have been prevented. That's according to a more than 300-page report released Tuesday by the U.S. Coast Guard, following a 2-year investigation. The report concluding that multiple factors led to this sudden, catastrophic implosion during a tour of the Titanic's wreckage in June of 2023. All 5 people on board were killed, including OceanGate's CEO, Stockton Rush.
Was the company primarily to blame for this tragedy?
I believe so. So they understood the process. They just didn't follow it.
According to the Coast Guard report, OceanGate created a toxic workplace environment, silencing employees who tried to voice concerns about safety, leading to inadequate design, certification, maintenance, and inspection of Titan. The report directly criticizing CEO Stockton Rush of creating a top-down leadership where safety was not only deprioritized, but actively suppressed.
Mr. Rush had said many times that, safety and regulatory process is just kind of a burden.
In public hearings 2 years ago, former OceanGate employees described how Rush strategized ways to avoid oversight.
Said that they were going to flag the Titan in the Bahamas and launch out of Canada so that they wouldn't fall under U.S. jurisdiction.
Another employee, David Lockridge, raised safety concerns back in 2018 when the Titan's hull was making popping noises during testing.
Everybody was aware that the hull was starting to break down. It should never have sounded like that at all. That was a warning sign.
But his warnings about the carbon fiber used to make the Titan were ignored, and he was fired. Rush's reaction to those safety concerns highlighted in a Netflix documentary.
As everyone says, carbon fiber can't handle compression. They're full of and I've proven them to be full of
Now, the U.S. Coast Guard says the failure of the carbon fiber in the Titan is the likely cause of the tragedy. The family of British businessman Shahzada Dawood and his 19-year-old son, who both died, thanked the Coast Guard's calls for accountability and regulatory change, but added no report will make up for their heartbreaking loss.
The NTSB is also conducting a separate investigation. Its final report is expected to release later this month. In response to the Coast Guard's report, OceanGate says it has cooperated fully with their investigation, adding it wound down their operations right after the tragedy, Joe.
All right, Stephanie, thank you so much. Now to the rising tensions in the Middle East. A top UN official is sounding the alarm as Israel pushes for a full reoccupation of Gaza. NBC's Claudio Lavanga joins us from Rome with that and more world news in 60 seconds. Claudio, good morning.
Hey guys, good morning. Well, that's right. A top official at the United Nations said that if Israel carries on with plan to extend its military operation in Gaza, it could have catastrophic consequences, including endangering further the lives of many more Palestinians, as well as the remaining hostages there. Now, Assistant Secretary General Miroslav Yencha also said that under international law, Gaza is and must remain part of a future Palestinian state. Let's go now to India, where at least 4 people died and around 100 others are missing after on Tuesday a torrent of mud unleashed by flash floods smashed into a town in the Himalayan region. Indian media showed terrifying videos of the muddy water sweeping away multi-story apartment blocks and several people running from the waves of mud and debris. And let's end this tour of the world in Poland, where the world's smelliest flower has bloomed again. Experts say the flowering of the Amorphophallus titanum, even the name of the flower stinks, is a rare event. But what's also rare is the stench it produces, described as resembling rotting flesh. Now, guys, this is a flower that you may not want to give your partners, unless you want to raise a stink, of course.
Happy Valentine's Day, also known as the corpse flower. I did smell one once, and as you can imagine, it wasn't pleasant. All right, Claudio, thanks so much, appreciate it. Staying with international news, this week marks 80 years since the U.S. dropped atomic bombs on 2 Japanese cities, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In all, nearly 250,000 lives were lost in the aerial assault, which many historians say helped expedite the end of World War II. NBC News international correspondent Janice Mackey-Frayer has a closer look at how Hiroshima is honoring the lives lost while fighting to ensure that history does not repeat itself.
Every morning at exactly 8:15, the chimes ring out across Hiroshima, marking the moment in 1945 when a U.S. bomber overhead, the Enola Gay, dropped the world's first atomic bomb here. What it looked like from the air, a mushroom cloud, rising some 60,000 feet.
Hiroshima had ceased to exist.
Yet on the ground, wide-scale death and devastation.
The target was this bridge. It's T-shaped, but the bomb veered toward the dome, which after the blast was the only building in a 1-mile radius still standing.
The whirlwind of force and fire killed thousands outright. The radioactive black rain poisoning countless more. Teruko Yahata was 8 years old that day. She says she still has the scar from being hurled by the blast. Fearing another, she huddled under a blanket with her family. I didn't really understand what it meant to die, she says. But the warmth I felt at us dying together, I still remember to this day. 3 days after Hiroshima, the U.S. unleashed a second bomb on Nagasaki, hastening Japan's surrender and, according to most historians, the end of the war, at a price of nearly 250,000 lives. From the ashes, Hiroshima was rebuilt.
So this is it, the hypocenter. It was roughly 2,000 feet over this spot.
Now a busy city of more than 1 million people, drawing tourists from around the world in a sort of pilgrimage. There's a memorial peace park and museum. And the iconic atomic dome.
Both sides was crushed from the top, and then this part was melted.
People now connecting to the past using virtual reality.
You look straight up.
I see the B-29 bomber.
The tour recreates the bombing and its brutal aftermath, at times troubling.
You can just easily imagine that it truly happened here, using this VR.
Yet the toll of what happened is all around Hiroshima. Survivors here are called hibakusha, or bomb-affected persons. Many have endured illness and discrimination. Kunihiko Ida grew up an orphan. He says he was told he wouldn't live to age 20. Now he's 83. Yet each year the hibakusha decline, and soon living memory of that day will be gone. Last year, the work of Japanese survivors group Nihon Hidankyo was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Toshiyuki Mimaki among those, making it a mission to ensure Hiroshima is neither forgotten nor repeated. We're in a very dangerous situation with Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Iran, he says. Even a single nuclear bomb would mean disaster. For a long time, many survivors and their families didn't talk about that day or the effects of radiation or emotional trauma.
Hello, excuse me, where did you come from?
When Shun Sasaki learned what his great-grandmother had gone through, he didn't shy away from it. Instead, the 12-year-old began offering free guided tours for visitors to the Peace Park.
Why is it important to talk about it? So, the most scariest thing that might happen in the future is to forget what happened a long time ago. I thought that if I could tell them about Hiroshima, it can be more better.
80 years on, there are reminders here, like the chimes that ring out every morning. Janice Mackey-Freyer, NBC News, Hiroshima.
Janice for that report. Coming up, President Trump's tariffs on trade partners around the world set to go into effect tomorrow. When we come back, we're going to break down what you need to know about how they could impact your next trip to the grocery store. You're watching Morning News Now. Back now with a closer look at what's making news in the world of politics this morning, starting with how a Republican lawmaker is responding after facing a rocky reception at a town hall meeting. Joining us now, NBC News politics reporter Megan Leibowitz. Megan, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Let's kick things off with town halls. So Nebraska's Republican Congressman Mike Flood was booed and jeered throughout his town hall on Monday, but now he's telling NBC that he doesn't regret it at all. NBC's Scott Wong spoke with Congressman Flood, who said that for him, it comes with the territory. He said, quote, "If you feel strongly about how you're voting and the choices you're making, you should be able to stand on the town square and be accountable for those votes." Next, the Summer Olympics are still a few years away, but it's already on Washington's mind. President Trump signed an executive order yesterday to create a task force for the 2028 Olympics in LA. The president will chair the task force, which includes top White House officials. Now, the goal here is to coordinate federal planning on issues like security, transportation, and visas. President Trump also said yesterday that he'd do anything necessary to keep the Olympics safe, including using the National Guard or the military. Now, also in 2028, the next presidential election. And new polling out yesterday is shedding more light on how young voters are thinking about politics. An AP North poll indicated that 21% of 18 to 29-year-olds follow politics very closely. Now, that's down compared to about a third of people across all age groups. The poll indicated that the economy was the top issue for young voters, followed by healthcare, taxes, and natural disaster relief. And that is a look at what is making news in politics this morning. Joe?
All right, Megan, thank you so much. Tomorrow, the Trump administration's new tariffs go into effect on many imported goods, including food. So this morning, we're taking a look at how those tariffs could impact the prices you pay at the grocery store. Chief Consumer and Investigative Correspondent Vicki Nguyen is here to break it all down for us and what you can do right now to save some money. Vicki, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Joe. Yeah, those new tariffs could really impact your grocery bill in a big way soon. This, as a new AP poll finds more than half of adults say the cost of groceries is a major source of stress in their lives. This morning, we have which foods will be hit the hardest by the tariffs, what to stock up on now to save money, and how some stores are being open about the price hikes.
From the produce aisle to meat, fish, and dairy. This morning, new transparency from some stores about how tariffs are impacting your grocery bill.
No one wants to talk about tariffs. Why are you talking about it? And are you worried it's going to hurt business?
What am I going to hide? You might as well just be honest and speak from the heart.
Stu Leonard Jr. runs a chain of popular grocery stores in the tri-state area. In a recent newsletter to customers, he openly addressed tariffs, saying he's committed to keeping prices the same by absorbing the existing 10% tariff on many imported foods.
Our importer said I'll split it with you.
You're absorbing the cost right now.
I'm absorbing the cost.
Will you continue to absorb the cost?
No, I won't. I can't afford to.
Starting tomorrow, new tariffs of 15 to 50% will take effect on many food imports, jacking up prices on produce from Central and South America, like bananas, pineapples, peppers, and cucumbers. And popular seafood from Indonesia and Vietnam now facing levies of up to 20%, double the previous rate. Higher tariffs also hitting imported coffee, olive oil, meat, and cheese.
The price went up on the Reggiano Parmesan, so I cut the wedges smaller. So they're only $10 each.
Also impacted European spirits. With pre-tariff inventories running out, you may see price hikes on wine from France and Italy. If so, Leonard says consider buying American.
It's a lot less expensive. Will there be a shift in wine, say, for instance, from Europe to Napa Valley or Washington State?
Leonard promises to disclose any price bumps from tariffs to his customers. But when we asked other supermarket chains if they plan to do the same, none would comment. President Trump has posted that retailers should eat the tariffs. Rick Volpe is professor of agribusiness at Cal Poly.
Retailers are going to be very careful and cautious about increasing prices and advertising that.
Shoppers we spoke to say they want stores to be honest about tariffs.
I think we appreciate that because we want to be an informed consumer, and being able to budget and plan accordingly is helpful.
I don't think businesses should eat all the tariffs either. I mean,
I agree.
We should be aware of how these policies are affecting us on a day-to-day level.
Another tariff impacting food prices, the 50% levy on imported steel and aluminum, metals commonly used in grocery packaging. Experts say it could soon raise prices on dozens of products.
Packaged, processed, prepared foods, foods that rely more heavily on storage. So, of course, we're talking about beverages, we're talking about canned foods, we're talking about foods that rely on foil or metal containers.
There is some good news. Because of reciprocal tariffs overseas, sales of some American foods like lobster have slowed, leading to higher supplies and lower prices.
We've lowered these lobster prices $1 each.
That's significant.
Yeah, so enjoy your lobster.
Another tip to avoid tariff price hikes, experts say stock up now on imported wine, spirits, and coffee, canned goods like sodas, and imported meat and seafood. Buy it fresh, and you can freeze it for up to several months. Good advice for consumers weary of paying more at the grocery store. When you hear about tariffs, when you hear about price hikes, what do you think as a consumer?
I think at some point it needs to stop.
Yeah, until it does, you want to save money on your groceries, so look for those specials at the supermarket. Price compare between stores and stick with that shopping list. Try to resist those impulse buys as much as possible.
That's always good advice. But you understand why some stores are going to say, hey, this is because of the tariff. And that's useful information for the consumer to know, hey, I don't need to blame the store for this. This is because of the policy.
Exactly. And the customers we talked to say they appreciated Stu Leonard and the store being so open about it, talking about it in the newsletter. I think when people know, they're less likely to be resistant or at least blame the store, like you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. Vicki, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Coming up, a scandal that is rocking the world of science. A new study reveals the growing problem of fake research papers. What's behind the trend and why it has scientists so worried? We are back with a growing trend that is worrying scientists. Fake research is being produced on an industrial scale, then getting published in legitimate journals. A new study released on Monday revealed the number of fraudulent papers has been doubling every 1.5 years. Researchers say those fake papers typically include doctored images, plagiarized text, even AI-generated content. They're designed to easily avoid expert intervention. That's undermining the trust and high standards that scientists depend on. New York Times columnist Carl Zimmer joins me now. He spoke with some of the researchers who've been looking into this issue. Carl, good to have you with us. So can you explain how fake research manages to get published in these journals? I mean, I think we all assume there are checks in place to try and prevent this.
We assume that, and it turns out that's not always the case. You will have scientists working individually or even entire companies that make a business out of this that will produce papers that are really not based on fact. They will show fabricated images. They will make claims about experiments that didn't take place. And then these papers are submitted to journals where they're supposed to go through peer review. Sometimes they slip through, nobody notices until they're accepted because they look legitimate. In other cases, editors are actually being bribed.
How big of a problem is this for science? And help us understand why those of us who aren't scientists should be so concerned about it.
Well, science works because scientists can build on each other's work. You know, if you want to, figure out a cure for cancer, you want to go and look at what other people have looked at before for the kind of cancer you're trying to cure. Maybe you want to build on what someone else did. If someone else just presented an illusion, you might waste years trying to build on their work because it was a dead end. It's that serious.
The Trump administration has proposed more cuts to federally funded research. That would include fields, physics, climate science, manufacturing. How much could those cuts affect this issue?
The scientists I've talked to are very concerned that this could really accelerate this problem with fraud because you're looking at tremendous cuts and you're going to have a whole field of American science where scientists and graduate students are looking for jobs, are desperate. There'll be very little support, fewer posts, and so the attraction to cutting corners and maybe even fabricating is going to go way up here in the United States.
You spoke with the experts. What do they say needs to happen to try and stop this fraud from happening?
Really, we need to overhaul how we look at the value of science and how we reward scientists. You know, in a lot of countries now, you have to publish 10, 20 papers a year to even be considered for promotion. And that's got to stop. We have to focus on the quality of science and maybe be publishing less science.
You also mentioned some other things here, including banning scientists who commit misconduct from getting published in the future. That seems like an important thing too, right?
Absolutely, yeah. The punishments, such as they are just not enough to keep people away from this activity, as you can see, because it is growing exponentially.
All right, Carl Zimmer, appreciate you taking time to speak with us this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you've eaten out recently, you've probably noticed there is a spicy shift hitting menus across the country. From sandwiches to sauces, fast food chains are turning up the flavor and the heat to win over a younger crowd. NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch joins us now from Miami with more on the trend. Jesse, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good morning. The hottest menu items these days are literally the hottest. When you're trying to figure out what to eat, increasingly we're finding people are turning to get something like this. And we wanted to find out why. Taste test and all.
Damn, McDonald's, chill.
From social media
they got spicy.
To menus nationwide, this morning, the heat is on with the latest shakeup in fast and casual dining.
Spicy or ranch?
Spicy. Major restaurant chains piling on the flavor.
For Chipotle heat with a touch of sweet.
This spring and summer, U.S. chains adding over 70 new spicy dishes to their menus, according to CNBC and the market research firm Data Central. With both diners and restaurants now more cost conscious, it's a way to attract new customers.
As far as trying to innovate, trying to draw people back in, this is one of the cheapest ways to do this, right?
It is. Adding a new sauce to an existing product is a simple way to add new flavors, new complexity, but not too much labor.
Brands also say they're trying to reach younger diners.
I'll come back and get this again.
Oh, that's hot. That's good, though.
With a growing number flocking to spicier foods, fueled by social media, where spicy menus often trend. And there are even popular shows like Hot Ones, making spicy food all the rage.
Why do you think spicy food is so in right now?
I think it's mostly just a trendy thing right now.
So people may not even actually enjoy the taste. They just want to be in on a trend.
I think a lot of it has to do with trend. Yeah, 100%.
Now brands from Wendy's to Chipotle to Cava to Taco Bell all adding a range of spicy foods. Wendy's even launching a Takis Fuego meal, with major food chains not wanting to get left out of the latest hot food craze.
I think if you're a restaurant launching new products in 2025 and you don't have a spicy product or a spicy offering that's a component of that, you are missing out on the competition.
And Joe, just to speak to how widespread this trend seems to be, those two young women who helped us with a little taste testing bravery, they told me they don't even like spicy food, but it is still coming up in their social media feed. So it just speaks to how this is going all over the place. And beyond the spicy food, Joe, of course, you got to be ready to cool things down. Stay safe. This is my emergency safety valve right here. We got some chocolate milk. So you go spicy, then you cool it down. We'll have a Frosty a little bit later. I feel like, milk was better at this time of the morning.
Yeah, Frosty in the morning is good, too. I'm from Minnesota, where ketchup is a spice. So, we don't.
They had spicy mystery ketchup. Here too, so we'll try to send some of that your way.
Mystery ketchup. All right, Jesse, thank you so much. Coming up, welcome to Miami. Our new nightly news anchor, Tom Yamas, is giving us a tour of his hometown. Up next, we're going to take you along for the ride as he takes our colleague Al Roker for a trip through Miami's vibrant culture. Stay with us. Finally this hour, Tom Yamas is anchoring nightly news from his hometown of Miami all week, and he took the opportunity to give the Today Show's Al Roker a grand tour. The two had some fun exploring the city. I hear there may have even been a few mojitos involved. The dynamic duo joins us now from Miami with a recap of their day. I believe the mojitos happened before today and not this morning, but maybe we'll all find out together right now. Good morning, gentlemen.
Hey, Joe, good morning to you. Mojitos happen at all hours here in Miami.
Yeah, it's noontime somewhere.
Joe, as you know, my roots run really deep here in South Florida, and so do NBC's. From our powerhouse station, WTVJ, to our NBC News Bureau, to Telemundo. We've stayed invested in this community as it's grown. Every day there are new residents, and we may have a new one right here. The entire world knows him as Al, but here in Miami, we call him Alberto.
In the heart of Miami, Little Havana beats to its own drum. Everywhere you look, a colorful slice of Cuban culture. It's a neighborhood steeped in history and a place that's always felt like home to me and my family. A must-see spot in my neck of the woods for NBC's finest.
Ah, senor!
Al, my friend. ¿Cómo estás?
Oh,
good?
I'm so excited.
Welcome to Miami.
Thank you.
Okay, and welcome to a special place we call Little Havana, or La Pequeña Habana.
Our first stop for a jolt of energy, El Pub's iconic Ventanita.
So this is special. This is called La Ventanita, okay? And that means the small window. People love having a cafecito here. They walk up or they drive up. They ask for dos café, por favor. And they get their Cuban coffee, they sip their coffee, they talk, they catch up.
This is great. Is it me or am I smelling cigar smoke?
There's cigar smoke here, there's smell of fried plantains. This is the smell of Little Havana. It's such a special place, and it's been like this, Al, since probably around 1959, 1960. Little Havana has just grown, and it's thrived. Right after I was born, my parents had an apartment in Little Havana, and so the first year of my life was here, and it just changed completely. Little Havana has exploded in size. It's a tourist mecca, but there's still certain spots like this place where you can come and you can get the authentic Little Havana.
It's got to be special for you. Now you're anchoring NBC Nightly News, the son of Cuban immigrants. How does that feel?
Oh, it's incredibly special. I'm so proud to be from this community. Muchísimas gracias. You gotta go.
Whoa.
You gotta say, que rico.
Que rico.
Que rico.
Que rico.
I mean, that's delicious. Al, this is gonna keep us going all day.
Wow.
Coffee was just the appetizer for our spread inside El Pub. The family-owned and operated restaurant has been a staple in this community for nearly 30 years. The menu here, a celebration of the very best in Cuban cuisine.
All right, Al, I'm gonna walk you through this.
All right, here we go.
You got a little bit of everything here. I'm gonna start with yours. It's called vaca frita.
Okay.
These are plantains that they kind of mash down and they deep fry. Those are called tostones.
Tostones.
They're the best thing in the world. And then you have right here the piece de resistance.
Cubano?
This is the Cubano here. It's not just a ham and cheese sandwich. It's ham, cheese, and a little bit of pork.
I know. Oh my gosh, the perfect Cuban sandwich.
Yeah.
I am so
let's
excited.
dig in.
Woo!
Yeah. So We're full now. Let's walk this off a little bit.
Good idea.
I'll show you some of the sites. We'll do a little shopping. Sound good?
Let's do it.
Okay.
With that, we were off, walking down Calle Ocho, the center of all the action in Little Havana. A vibrant main street filled with shops, bars, and restaurants.
The next shop I'm going to take you to is a place where they sell guayaberas.
Oh.
Now, guayaberas are the traditional Cuban shirt. It's breathable, and that's the whole purpose because it's so hot here.
All right.
In Cuba. All right, let's go in.
Next up, a quick fit check with a neighborhood original.
So we would like 2 guayaberas, please. What do you recommend? What's in style right now?
What do you think about this one?
I like that. Oh, I think I like that even more.
With a little help, we suited up in style.
There you
All
go.
right,
Woo!
now we're talking.
Oh, Johnny, thanks for hooking us up.
Yeah, we
All right.
appreciate you so much. Al, how do you feel?
I feel great, baby.
You feel like Miami.
I feel Cuban.
You look like Miami.
Oh, look out. Let's go.
No, vamos.
Vámonos.
After making Calle Ocho our runway,
I got one last place to show you.
Okay.
Do you have your dancing shoes on?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right, let's go listen to some music.
Ooh.
We may have to dance.
Okay.
And we'll get in, because I know a guy.
it was time to unwind at one of the hottest spots in town, the world-famous Ball and Chain. Right away, I made good on my promise. Dancing, followed by something stronger.
All right, Al, so in Miami, there's only 2 cocktails you need to know.
Okay.
Number 1, the mojito.
Right.
So 1 mojito. And number 2, rum and coke, which is also known as Cuba Libre.
Cuba Libre?
So 1 Cuba Libre. Al, before we go, I'm going to give you a secret of Miami.
Okay.
This is the one word you need to know. If you know this, you'll get anything in Miami. Okay? It's dale.
Dale.
Watch. Tell the band dale.
Dale.
A perfect end to our day in Little Havana.
Alberto, you have the look, you have the language, you have the rhythm. That's it, buddy. You're set. Welcome to Miami.
Dale! Back to you, Joe.
I feel like I'm supposed to start playing music now, all right? I think this is the beginning of NBC's new buddy comedy. Tom and Al, thank you both. Appreciate it. What a fun tour of Miami.
I'll watch that.
It's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now. Don't go anywhere. The news continues right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.